Hello and welcome to the Shelf Examination Podcast, where we examine items found on the shelves of our local libraries. I'm Joe, the Makerspace Administrator for the libraries in Southern Utah.
And I'm Sarah, the Reference and Teen Librarian at the Hurricane Branch Library in Southern Utah.
And today we are continuing our Kaiju review. We are on movie number 3. We have already reviewed King Kong, the original Godzilla movie. And today we are going to be discussing
Godzilla Raids Again.
Honestly, great title.
Oh, it's a great title.
From 1955. Now, before we discuss this movie, though, I need to amend something that I said about the original Godzilla movie.
Dun, dun.
In my last interview, I said that people should skip the original Godzilla movie. And you push back on that one, and I think you were right to do that because I was wrong. People shouldn't skip the original Godzilla movie, but I don't think that if people want to get the experience
of an actual kaiju
of a kaiju
movie,
don't start with that one. Mm-hmm. I think that you and I experienced kaiju movies when we were younger. They would show them on TV.
Oh yeah, with this bad dubbing
and everything like that. And we jumped into the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know what your first kaiju movie was.
The first one I saw was Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla.
Okay. I don't know what my first Godzilla movie was.
I watched it because my brothers thought it was a Transformers movie. And they thought that Mechagodzilla, because the box was in Japanese, so they thought Mechagodzilla was like Grimlock Transformer.
I 100% support that headcanon. I'm down with it.
And I was like, okay, and they were upset because it wasn't a Transformers movie, but
it was still very cool.
I was very okay with it the whole time, going, no, I like this. You guys shut up. I'm going to watch this.
So I don't know what my first Godzilla movie was, and I really don't know what the first Godzilla movie was that I watched from beginning to end, because I would catch it on TV, and I would come in the middle of it.
always.
And I'd catch the last half of it, which usually was the good part.
Well, yeah.
And so I think that if you want to, I think as we're looking at these movies, I'm going to be looking for, like, what's the best kaiju movie from the standpoint of, like, what's going to get people into kaiju movies. And I don't think that the original Godzilla.
No. And actually the director made a comment after Godzilla Raids Again came out, the original director of Godzilla, who could not do Godzilla Raids Again because he was already contracted to do a different film.
Right.
He actually said that he preferred Godzilla Raids Again because it was more about the monster and less about the people.
That is interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
He liked it. He said, he liked because it focused on the monster and what they could do, and and how insignificant people can really be.
Well, I don't know. I think that the original Godzilla movie definitely brought out the insignificance of people, but they put it against the backdrop of a disaster.
Yeah, as a disaster movie rather than a monster movie.
Right.
And with the inclusion of, because in original Godzilla, the dinosaurs that Godzilla fights are just dinosaurs. They're not any one particular goddess. Where in Raids Again, there's an actual named, focused villain, and so it's a battle between two big monsters, giants in the sandbox, and we're just the ants in the middle.
Although I will say, so let's kind of jump into the movie, into the synopsis of this one, so that we can discuss this as we go. But the movie opens, and we are introduced to Tsukioka. I'm going to call him Mr. Handsome.
Okay.
Because that's very clearly his role in this.
Tsukioka.
And he is a airplane scout.
Yeah, they're fish spotters.
Yeah, fish spotters for a fishing company, and he has a
they're looking
operator.
For bonito fish, and I don't know if you've ever had bonito flakes, but I was freaked out by them for the very first time because they're dried fish and they put them on damp food. So on top, they're just like a garnish type thing.
It sounds like a sardine, although dry.
No. It's just flakes.
Interesting. I've never had this.
It's wild because from the steam and as they rehydrate, they wiggle.
That's, you know what? That's awesome.
I was like,
less
what is
going
on? It's actually quite tasty, but at the same point, I was like, Is it supposed to do that? It is supposed to do that, which is why I laugh when they're like, oh, we're fishing bonito. And I'm like, oh, for bonito flakes.
I know bonito. Yeah, I did not know that. That is, wow. I'm learning all sorts of stuff. And he has got an operator back at main base, Hideyami Yamaji, who I'm going to call girl number 1. And she has got a friend back at the base who, it's funny, looking on the Wikipedia page, looking on the synopsis, this girl gets no
recognition,
love,
in a way,
no recognition. In fact, in the list of like people in this
She's
movie,
way down on the list on the cast.
I'm trying to figure out, there she is. She is just above the chief of civil defense,
who has like 4 lines.
Yeah, exactly. Her name was in the movie
is Inoue.
Inoue, and we're going to call her girl number 2. Here's the thing about this: girl number 1, girl number 2. To my eyes, just as the two of them were just as pretty as each other.
Oh yeah, they
either
were
one
both
of those
beautiful actresses.
Yeah, they could have been swapped out for either role, and both of them would have.
They were good actresses. Yeah.
But they were both, in my opinion, neither one of them was more glamorous than the other. Whereas the 2 male leads, we haven't talked about Kobayashi.
Not to be confused by Star Trek fans as the Kobayashi Maru.
Yes, no, this is the pilot, the second pilot. This dude is in.
He's the goofy class clown character.
Well, by look and by behavior, yeah, he's the goofy sidekick character.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's the thing: so to kick this movie off, his plane crashes. And you're thinking, oh, the goofy sidekick character did something. No, he just had the bum plane that day.
Yeah, they hadn't maintained it properly.
It was not his fault. He did nothing wrong. He is Wario.
Yeah, it's like, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's not my fault. I'm stuck up against this guy that is, chiseled out of marble.
Yeah. No, the Mr. Handsome, nothing goes wrong for him.
Of course not. He's Mr. Handsome.
But then Kobayashi crashes his airplane through no fault of his own because he's the goofy sidekick character. But that kicks off our first kaiju sighting, and it's the return of Godzilla, and he's fighting an ankylosaurus on this island.
Which has a name, and I can never pronounce it.
Yeah, I don't even care. It's an ankylosaurus. It's a spiky
giant
turtle.
It's extra spiky ankylosaur. Yeah, they just took a picture out of the encyclopedia of what an ankylosaurus was, and they just added more spikes.
Yes. And I will say it was very obvious. I a little bit disappointed that it looked so much like a dude crawling in a suit. And I mean, I know that that's because it's a dude crawling in a suit, but it looked like it.
Not what I expected you to say.
No, it just, more than once in this movie, you could see the actor's knees bent and his feet behind. And I'm like, come on, guy, come on.
This is before the time with blue screen and mocap.
Yeah.
No one had done a quadruped before.
That's true. They were trying to do a quadruped. It was the first time they had done it, and they didn't. I won't say that they quite nailed it.
Now they were still working out the kinks, but
But at this point, it shifts, and we get to see the scientist character, one of the scientists from the first movie.
And they explain everything to the pilots, the whole plot convenience in case you missed the first one.
Yes, they do
the
recap
review
the
episode,
first movie.
yeah.
And then they're like, but now we have another Godzilla.
Yeah.
We're like, wait, so frustrating.
Wait,
how many Godzillas do we have on? Okay, so can we kill one per movie and we'll just get a new Godzilla every single time?
So now a race of Godzilla. What do you call it, Godzilla?
Godzilla. What's the plural for Godzillas? I don't know. Godzilla Roonies. I mean, it's so much kind of derailed the success of the first movie.
Yeah, the story
the
of it.
The triumph of beating this monster.
And
they do point it out.
One.
They're like, yes, in order to defeat him first time, we had to use the oxygen destroyer, and we don't have that anymore, so we're kind of screwed.
Yeah, we don't have that anymore because the scientist who made it died and took his notes with him. And I'm like, well, thank you for at least getting that part right.
Yes, they did. And that's true. But
at least they moved it from Tokyo to Osaka this time.
That's true. The setting is now in Osaka. And the fight is mostly between Godzilla and this ankylosaurus. And people are just
They're
in the way.
Yeah. You have the two giants in the playground, and when we're the ants in the bottom.
But at this point, we are taken to a scene where now that they understand the threat and they understand the problems of what's going on, they get together at, I don't remember whose house, and they're drinking, and we really get to see the relationship between Mr. Handsome and girl number one.
Which is unfortunate that you don't see any development in the second couple.
Well, yeah, because... Well, and spoilers for those who haven't seen the movie, although at this point the movie's so old, statute of limitations is up.
Yeah, if you don't know by now, that's your own fault.
But yes, there is a secondary relationship between the goofy sidekick character and girl number two. Even on a second reviewing,
it was like, where did this come from?
I did not see that being developed. All that they developed was Mr. Handsome and girl number one's relationship. And at this point, as they're sitting there eating, I'm thinking, I know what's happening here. Right. We're setting up this relationship so that one or the other of them can die and we can have our hearts ripped out. I know what's happening. I can see it coming.
This is Japanese. We know how this is going to go.
Spoilers for the end of the movie. No.
That's not what happened.
That's not what happened. It's this secondary relationship that they didn't develop. And this
I felt cheated almost.
Yes, because we had this relation. We had this setup. And then, first of all, we can't kill Mr. Handsome. He's Mr. Handsome. And so we can't kill the girl because she's not out there. So let's kill the goofy sidekick instead. And then let's have this girl number two go, my boyfriend!
No! Yeah, and I'm like, wait, since when?
When did that happen? It was so out of the blue.
Yeah, there was no investment in the characters as a relationship.
Yeah.
So when they're
I couldn't transfer the feelings that I had for the first relationship to this second relationship.
Because we saw no development for it.
And I feel like that's what they expected me to do. They expected viewers to go, well, see, aren't you happy? You got to keep the relationship that you were invested in, and we lost this other relationship. Feel bad for them. I want to.
I think it might be also a little cultural.
It might. Well, there's definitely some culture in there. Although I will say, whereas the first Godzilla treated kaiju as a metaphor.
Yes, for the
horrors of war and the results of war and the fallout of war. Mm-hmm.
This is more of a monster movie.
It's more of a monster movie.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Straightforward. The monsters are fighting. There's no.
And I liked where in this one, it wasn't just, we must defeat. It's, can we divert them somewhere else that isn't populated?
Don't have a means of defeating him. Yeah. Their whole strategy is when he shows up, we turn off all the lights and we set off flares to get them to go away.
They established in the first Godzilla movie that Godzilla is attracted by electricity and light.
Yes.
And so when
he likes shiny lights.
He likes the shiny things like me. Easily distracted by the shiny. So they're going to have. He's going to be attracted to the big cities. Thus, he takes out Tokyo and all the Shinjuku and all those things. How many times? I'm keeping a running tally through all of the Japanese movies I watch of how many times Shinjuku gets destroyed. It's a lot. But anyway,
at this point, they've just got a pop-up book that they can just, no, another one. Just pull another one off the shelf and open it back up.
Yeah, here's another Shinjuku. I was like, what's wrong with Shinjuku District? Why does everyone hate Shinjuku?
It must just it's a bit like destroying New York in American movies.
Right.
It's popular. It's a setting that we see,
and it's always Manhattan. It's not like the Bronx or it's Manhattan.
No, because that's the one on the postcards.
Yeah,
you know,
the iconic buildings. But anyway, totally off topic. But I liked the fact that they were like, these guys are part of nature, although not the nature we understand.
Right.
Why don't we just get away from anything that attracts them and they can go duke it out on their own?
Which is something that we see in modern Godzilla movies. They kind of bring that idea back that this is just going to happen and we can either be in the way or get out of the way. We can either live with it or die.
Yeah.
Those are our choices.
Those are our options. So they decide to, enforce a complete blackout of Osaka, which is the biggest city in that area.
Yes.
And so they black out Osaka, and Godzilla's like, there's nothing interesting over here. Let's go back over here.
Yeah, let's follow the shiny light. So at this point...
And then, everyone's setting off flares.
The human, the bee story is kind of put aside as we watch these monsters
duke it out
and fight, and we see
And
Godzilla and his caustic breath. Actually, is it caustic or is it atomic?
It is atomic in
movie?
They establish it that this is the first movie where it is atomic.
Yeah, okay.
I also found it really interesting that the Ankylosaurus comes back in multiple movies later, and half the time he's fighting with Godzilla, and half the time he's fighting against Godzilla. And I'm just like, dude, pick a side. But
well, that does end up being a thing in future Godzilla movies. That half the time Godzilla is on our side, and half the time he's our protector and he's our defender, and half the time he's going to kill us all. Sometimes in the same movie.
Yeah, I think it depends on where Mothra is at the time. Because Mothra's like, no, stop being mean to the humans.
That's right. We gotta have at least one monster on our side in order to have that dynamic. But that dynamic is not yet
not in this one. So yeah, so it's great. They turn out the lights. They send out the signal flares out into the middle of the ocean where no one is.
And Godzilla turns around.
So Godzilla's like, oh, shiny, and does what I do and follows. And then we have these random,
a completely different movie.
We have the sea characters, the sea cast, which are these
that's right,
random escaped convicts.
Yes. So the blackout and the attack causes a prison to open up, and all of a sudden we spend a long time watching these escaped convicts, steal a van or a truck, I think, and try and run away from the police. And it really felt like we were watching footage from another movie.
Yeah, that they just kind of wiggled in there.
Yeah, that they kind of fit in there, but then they tied it
what
in
happens
because these idiots drive the truck into a
oil refinery.
Is that what it was? An oil refinery.
They crash into an oil refinery, which causes this huge explosion.
And as we know, Godzilla is attracted to the light, so he's like, "Ooh, let me go check
shiny,
it out."
Big ball of shiny.
And then also attracted to it is the Ankylosaurus.
Yeah, because he gets the heat and the blah blah.
Whatever reason, we get to have another fight between Godzilla and the Ankylosaurus.
And now it's right in the middle of the refinery and people and everything else.
Yeah.
So you can't fight the fire because you got the two things stomping on you.
And that's where we get Godzilla's atomic breath, and it's a heck of a scene. And
it's amazing. And the miniature, the work with the miniatures that they created was exquisite.
I will say the effects in this movie
were much better than the first one, and the first one did pretty good.
The first one did amazing. The first one pioneered a lot. The effects in this movie were mostly better,
except for the weird suit on the Ankylosaurus.
Well, not just the suit on the Ankylosaurus, but they zoomed into their faces doing a roar, like 17 times in this movie.
And that was one of the things I saw a lot of critics panned on this movie. It was the fact that even with the humans, a ton of the shots were super close up on both the monsters and the people.
They had, I think, what
happened
was they created this new roar mechanic, and they were like, "We got to show this off." Cool, show it off.
Twice, if you have to. One from one end, one from the other.
Once at the end.
Yeah, look, you can do it from the right, you can do it from the left.
But apparently they were real proud of this roar. It reminds me of the first Star Trek movie. When they were like...
slow motion picture.
Yes, when they were like... Yes, slow motion picture. I love that. When they were like, yes, we've got a new starship model, and we're going to show it off for 15 minutes. I'm falling asleep. I mean, I was like, come on, guys.
Okay, that movie was originally written as a half-an-hour episode that they never got to film.
Oh,
so they expanded it into a movie.
But yeah, it's a case of like they were so excited about this thing that they had done that they had to show it off again and again and again.
And over. It was like it's like if you watch modern day cartoons, you're like, look, it's the reused animation.
Yes.
Because it's cheaper and we think it's cool.
So let's see what happens after that. After that,
they have the big battle.
Godzilla and the Ankylosaurus wander off. Stomp. And they're like, well, we've got to do something to do this, or we got to do something. We got
to fix this problem, or it's going to get worse.
Right. And so Mr. Handsome and Kobayashi are given actual like fighter jets.
Yeah.
At this point,
I was like, it's a big difference. You should. In
hey, you know what?
I went like,
hello,
okay,
boys, I'm back. Why not?
They went from being prop planes to fighter jets, and neither of them had a problem adjusting.
Yes, No, they handled it just fine. And we have another fight with Godzilla, this time on the original island.
Yep, back to the original island.
And again, we alluded to this before, but Kobayashi has his noble sacrifice. His plane crashes into Godzilla, crashes into the island.
So that handsome man doesn't have to.
So that handsome man's relationship is not destroyed. But he ends up... Their solution to Godzilla in this movie is let's just bury him in an avalanche.
Yeah, they get the idea. They see...
It was Kobayashi's sacrifice that started it.
Yes.
And then they're like, wait, let's
that worked.
More rockets and
yeah, they saw him. He hit because they weren't sure what to do. He sacrifices himself, slams into the
I mean, did he sacrifice himself, or was it again another mechanical failure because Kobayashi gets the bum airplanes? I wasn't really clear.
They don't really clear. I would like to think that he was doing the sacrifice for the greater good type idea.
I don't know. Going with that opening scene, I think he just got the bum airplane again.
Maybe the mechanics had it out for him.
Yeah,
but they don't really explain. You don't see anything going out or just no engine failures. Just fighting. Oh no!
Well, and they create a firewall to keep Godzilla
from going back.
Yeah, and
I'm like, how is that supposed to keep him trapped? He's atomic. It's a fire.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he's got a little bit of.
Maybe he's scared of fire.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of the monster of Frankenstein in him. Fire bad.
Who knows? But anyway, so it worked in this world. So
they bury
Godzilla. He crashes into the side of the mountain, and it slides. And they're like, "Oh, look! It actually affected him. Look, nature versus nature. Ooh, ah!" So instead of trying to hit the rockets directly at the monsters,
I'm just reading this. Kobayashi gets hit by Godzilla's atomic breath, so it wasn't a noble sacrifice. He just he
wrong
got
place,
hit.
wrong time.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time. Could have been anybody.
But it gave everyone the idea. They're like, oh, Earth, rocks and things do, lead. It does protect from.
That's right, the radiation.
The radiation. Yeah. Maybe it will. It seems to be slowing him down. Let's really let him have it. So they basically move the mountain from one place to another, and it had another happens to be on top of Godzilla.
That's right. It's interesting to me that the Ankylosaurus is not. At this point, like, he's been defeated. Yeah. So I guess he doesn't count.
He just kind of slinks off into the ocean, and we can't see him anymore.
But we got to bury Godzilla. And so they do.
I guess they decide he's more dangerous because of his breath and the roar. I don't know.
The breath is definitely more dangerous
than just the stomp, stomp, stomp.
And then they win, and we get girl number 2 going.
My
boyfriend. Yes.
And they're like, no, he was a hero. He showed us how to do this. Blah blah blah.
Yes, which is great. But at the same time, it's again, like we said, that moment
out of the blue.
I didn't
wait,
feel
he was
it.
your boyfriend? We didn't even know you were dating. What?
Which is a shame. I think
because they spent so much time working on Handsome Stranger and Girl Number 1.
Yeah.
That I like the fact that we remember Inoue and Kobayashi, but not the actual main characters.
Yeah, I know. I like them more.
I do too.
I don't know why, but
at the same point, they'd spent so much time on the first group, on the first couple. And it was just at the end they were like, oh yeah, they're happy, but the other couple, I think, even if they just done like a group date and showed both of them holding hands or something along those lines, then we would be like, oh, okay. Or they'd say something like, you guys have been together for how long now? Oh, cool, we've been together for this long.
During my second watching, there were hints that they had been together for a while, but that Kobayashi had been too shy or whatever to actually make a move, and she was there were hints of that, but not enough to get emotionally invested in it.
No, it was like, what?
Yeah. So overall,
maybe I want the spell it out for me kind of setting, but they spelled it out for the first couple. Why did they do it for the secondary couple?
For the couple that was going to end up being the emotional pivot point of the B's story. Yeah, they absolutely should have invested a little bit more in that. But A's story, monster fighting, pretty good in this movie.
Yeah, he still doesn't light up, but we're getting there.
Yeah, we don't have the tail spikes lighting up, but we do have. It is now officially atomic breath.
Because before it wasn't.
No, it was. Well, they didn't call it anything, but it definitely was just
weapon.
Caustic.
Yeah.
It just dissolved whatever you
acidic rather than acidic gas.
Great monster movie.
Miniatures were beautiful.
And they
they stepped up. It was a step up in the effects from the original Godzilla because Godzilla had already broken the trail.
Right. They were iterating at this point.
They were just, 2.0. But like you said, the first the quad suit was still
it needed some work.
It was still iffy, but they're working on it. But the part with the people was just not terrible.
It just didn't land.
It didn't.
So here's the question: we have seen 3 kaiju movies now. King Kong, Godzilla, and at the end of the last podcast, I think you and I both decided that King Kong was the better movie and Godzilla was number 2. The question is, Godzilla Raids Again. Was it objectively better and more fun than the original Godzilla? Was it could it possibly take the number 1 spot?
No.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's still King Kong. Because King Kong had a personality.
Yes.
He wasn't just, I'm here to rage.
No, King Kong was a more fun movie. It was emotional and
the
it was
people meant
great.
just as much in the movie as the giant monster.
Yeah.
It wasn't a, this is
will
B story,
yeah.
A story. It was the story.
Like I said at the time, they shortcutted the development of those characters so that they could get to the monster as well as they could, but they still made it valid.
Yeah.
And in this
Even
movie,
if she was dumb and stood next to the edge of the boat.
yeah, absolutely.
For so long.
Okay, so your ranking is King Kong number 1. What's number 2?
So far, Raids Again.
Raids Again is number 2 for
Yeah.
you, and the original Godzilla is number 3.
3 out of the 3.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna deviate from you at this point.
That's fine.
King Kong's still number 1.
Yeah.
I
like the original Godzilla
thought
better?
I thought that the original Godzilla was going to stay lower and that Godzilla Raids Again was going to be in the second. Because like you said, the effects were better. There were things that they iterated on. They got to the Kaijus a lot faster. It was a 20 minutes to Kaiju.
It was almost too fast. It was almost too fast.
Well, they delivered.
Yeah.
They delivered on what people wanted, and I liked it for that. But here's the thing. I didn't enjoy watching this movie. I felt like I had to force myself to watch it the second time.
I was entertained.
Yeah, I didn't. It felt to me like a... Well, I don't know if this term is still valid. Direct-to-video sequel. Nowadays, we'd say direct-to-streaming, but direct-to-streamings are really good these days.
There was never a theatrical release.
Yeah, except there was a theatrical release for this one. But
now, that's what we would say now.
It felt like this was a direct-to-video sequel that they just kind of cracked out as quickly as they could.
Maybe it was just in the mindset I was in. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit back and watch a monster movie. I just want to be entertained. I don't want to think too hard about it.
It wasn't by any means bad. And I feel...
Oh, no. And I've seen some bad movies.
And the thing is, I kind of feel weird putting the original Godzilla above this one. The reason why I'm doing it is because the original Godzilla, despite what I said in the previous...
It had more people involvement, and it made
had more
sense.
gravitas.
Yeah,
I felt it more.
Okay.
Whereas this movie, it was fun, it was entertaining, but it was...
the
calorie-less.
Yeah,
it was
the
pointless.
death of the scientist meant more.
Yes, there was a lot of depth, and despite the fact that I did not feel good watching that movie, it left an impact on me, and I really enjoyed it. Where this movie, I didn't feel like it left any impact.
Yeah, see, I wasn't going for impact. I was just going for, all right, entertainment.
Yeah. And
give me some brain candy.
And that's good.
So maybe that's why I enjoyed it more, because it was pure fluff. It was just...
But this also...
Not a lot of thought to it.
I really thought that the original Godzilla was going to stay at the bottom of the stack for a while until we got to the really bad movies. But now that Godzilla's sitting at number 2 and this is sitting at number 3, I really don't know what's going to happen.
Now, I will say that Godzilla Raids Again was part of a dual release.
Oh.
It was released with another movie at the same time.
So it was like a double feature.
Double feature, yes.
Science fiction.
Yes. All right. Well, we really appreciate you coming and listening to our silliness. So I'm Sarah.
And I'm Joe.
And we are inviting you to do some shelf examination of your own at your local library.
We'll see you next time.